Welcome to Saturday Morning Trek, just one of many podcasts on Trek FM. If you'd like to help keep Star Trek discussion coming your way each day, consider becoming a network patron through Patreon. Visit patreon.com/trekfm and find out how you can become part of the team. That's patreon.com/trekfm.
This is DC Fontana. You're listening to Trek FM.
It's set now for action and adventure. Future's here for us to see. It's 2200 AD.
Their mission, to fight injustice, to right that which is wrong, and
to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Welcome to Saturday Morning Trek. Join us at Trek FM as we journey back to the days of wood-paneled dens, console televisions, and eyeglass-wearing Starfleet officers. I'm Aaron Harvey.
And I'm Darren Moser. Now, I've never seen Star Trek the Animated Series, but grew up on 90s cartoons.
And I grew up on 70s cartoons, and TAS was my first Trek, and you're back!
Actually, I'm not back, Aaron. I've been here the entire time. I've just been a 16th of an inch tall, so I couldn't reach my podcasting equipment.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. I'm glad we didn't step on you.
No, it's all right. I've just been spending the last several months climbing my desk.
How did you sustain yourself?
Crumbs from my children. But no, it's good to be back talking about the animated series, which again is one of those shows that I totally am fine watching with them, even at this young age, because it's Star Trek, which is great, but it's also, animated, so it's even simpler.
Well, and the episode that we're talking about today kind of is even more for kids than the average animated series episode.
It's slightly silly.
Yeah, it kind of has that Land of the Giants / Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Gulliver's Travels. All thrown together.
Yep. So yeah, today we are going to be talking about the Terratin Incident. And why don't I give you a little bit of a backstory on that? A mysterious signal consisting of only one intelligible word, Terratin, draws the Enterprise and her crew to the lone planet of the Cephas system. While the Enterprise is orbiting the planet, something on the surface emits a flash of energy that temporarily immobilizes the crew and damages the ship's dilithium crystals. It soon becomes apparent that all organic matter aboard the ship is rapidly shrinking, including the crew and their organic xenylon uniforms. Sulu breaks his leg, Nurse Chapel nearly drowns in a fish tank in sickbay, and Spock calculates that in a matter of minutes the entire crew will stand a 16th of an inch high, past the point of operating the ship's controls. By using man-made ladders, the crew gets to the consoles and uses their collective strength to press the transporter buttons. Kirk orders Scotty to set an automatic return for him in 10 minutes. Kirk then transports to the surface and immediately grows to full size, since the transporter retained a memory of his body's molecular structure and it changed back to the previously detailed size and shape. He sees a miniaturized alien city, though the automated transporter returns him to the Enterprise before he can examine it thoroughly. Once back aboard, Kirk discovers that his entire crew has been spirited away to the miniature city on the planet's surface. He contacts the inhabitants, threatening them with destruction if they fail to return his crew, only to learn that their attack on the Enterprise had actually been a cry for help. The miniature city's leader, the Mendent of the Terratins, explains that the city is about to be destroyed by the planet's constant volcanic activity, and Spock discovers that the tiny Terratins are mutated humans descendants from a lost team of early space colonists. Like the Terra Nova colonists from Enterprise, the crew became cut off from Earth and named their adopted world Terra 10. After using the transporter to regain their normal size, the members of Kirk's crew, including one wearing glasses, replaces the Enterprise dilithium crystal supply with local crystals and brings the Terratin city aboard to relocate it and its inhabitants to a safer planet. This episode first aired November 17th, 1973. We're getting closer and closer to 1974, and at least we're past October at this point. And it was written by Paul Schneider, who previously wrote two pretty good episodes of TOS, Balance of Terror and The Squire of Gothos.
I mean, those were okay, but I mean, they're no Mud's Women. But no.
Or Mud's Passion, for that matter.
Those are great episodes. I mean, Balance of Terror. I mean, it was the submarine movie before you had Wrath of Khan and Squire of Gothos. It was Q before you had Q. So there's all sorts of goodness right there.
And Brian Fuller mentioned that Balance of Terror might kind of play a keystone or a touchstone
Brian
or something.
Fuller says lots of things. I'm just going to wait until we get some trailers running. But yes,
I'm still waiting for Ursinoids are going to play a big part of it, or something with maybe Halo fish from this episode.
Well, only 2 more months. I mean, it's January, right? We don't have to wait any longer to get new Trek.
I have some news for you since you've been shrunk down to 1/16 of an inch. We've it's been pushed to May.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, we could probably finish the animated series by then. So.
Probably. Actually, it's funny you mentioned that. It's like this sort of works out really well because we'll be able to wrap up the animated series and everything and start possibly phase 2 around the same time that we start Discovery. So we'll have,
which of course that's a Roman numeral 2 because you can't just write out the number 2.
Yes, I believe so. Actually, there are several names, and in our last interview episode, we interviewed Carrie O'Quinn from Starlog Magazine, and I found one of their Starlog commercials, and they're just like, it's from the 70s, it's Star Wars had just come out, it's like, and we talk about Star Trek 2. And I was like, wait a second. Oh, because at one point they called it Star Trek 2 as opposed to phase 2.
Instead of phase 2.
Yeah. So it went through a couple different names.
At last, Starlog, a serious science fiction magazine. The making of Star Wars, Close Encounters, the Superman movie, in Starlog, the astonishing magazine of science fiction and fact. Starlog is packed with color photos. Features like NASA's plan to sail to Halley's Comet. News about the Space Shuttle Enterprise. Isaac Asimov on Flight Faster Than Light. Star Trek, Space 1999. All your favorite movies and TV shows. Plus an inside look at Star Trek 2 and Buck Rogers. Articles and interviews with the top names in science fiction. New products, new books, new records, new ideas. Those crazy conventions. Everything a logical mind could want. All in Starlog, the magazine of the future. I find it fascinating. A 9-month trial subscription is yours for just $9.99. 6 fantastic issues, plus a big bonus. This wall-size poster of me, Robbie the Robot, showing all my fantastic circuits and functions. Starlog is a real blast.
So he wrote these 2 episodes, and he was no stranger to animation. He got some of his earliest starts with writing for the Mr. Magoo cartoons in the 1950s, and I think he wrote a Mr. Magoo movie, 1001 Arabian Nights. He often collaborated with his wife, Margaret Schneider. Together they wrote a couple episodes of medical drama, Dr. Kildare, Marcus Welby. He also wrote an episode of Gene Roddenberry's The Lieutenant, which starred Gary Lockwood. They also wrote for Ben Casey and Mr. Novak, and an episode of Ironside, which featured Robert Duquois, I think that's how you pronounce it, Duquois, who played a Klingon on Deep Space Nine's episode Son of Moog.
It's a small world after all. When
yes.
You have a Klingon connection with TAS.
Well, through Ironside. It's just like, it's kind of crazy. And in the 80s, they wrote for 8 is Enough, and Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, with Dorothy Fontana also wrote for. So according to Schneider, this episode was based on a 1-paragraph story idea from Gene Roddenberry. So from there, they basically fleshed it out with Dorothy Fontana, and they just really liked the idea of doing something Gulliver's Travels related. And since he had kind of he had done writing for animation already, I'm assuming that there was some benefit to that too. So.
Yeah, it feels like a paragraph. They shrink, and then the transporter saves them. That's basically the episode.
Well, yeah, we definitely have the return of the transporter saving people's trope that everyone thought started in the Next Generation, but really sort of started in the animated series, because I don't think they really did that much at all in TOS.
No, not.
It would break
not
down,
really.
but it wouldn't necessarily be the answer to things. So that was that's kind of the background on the writers or the writer. And voices, we have Nichelle Nichols plays Brielle, and James Doohan is doing the Mendant of the Terratins. I think that means sort of like a governor or mayor or president. I don't know what he was exactly.
Yeah, I didn't quite get the way they talked, because they didn't. I mean, they're tiny, but that's not really an issue. But the way they talk was almost as if the universal translator wasn't quite functioning properly.
Yeah.
Like every other verb was kind of misconstrued, and it was strange.
Well, I think they were trying to kind of play up on that idea that these were colonists that left Earth a long time ago, and so
they've progressed.
Yes,
their
much like
society's progressed.
We'll talk
in
about
a divergent
this
pattern
in the story part or the Trek Tech. There is a tie into the Enterprise episode Terra Nova, which, if you saw that, it had this even more irritating shift in language with the.
That's totally Shale,
Yes,
what you said right there.
That's going to be the one thing that people remember about that episode.
It is. Yes. It is. And it's their own fault.
Yes. And James Doohan also did Lieutenant Gabler, who is an engineering officer and is sort of, along with Erix and Emrys, is become one of the recurring characters in the animated series. He's the African-American engineer. And I think he appears on 3 episodes. So it's kind of cool that we had a returning, new character, even if he doesn't get to say much. They kind of... They have Kyle in this episode as well, and
Kyle.
I don't think he talks, actually. I'm not sure. I don't remember. But so that kind of is it for the voices and for the writers. What was your impression of the episode?
Well, it's a fun episode. It starts off normal, like, oh, we're gonna chart. I was kind of more interested in what they were charting in the beginning, and then they're like, oh, let's go have an adventure instead. It's like, okay,
the Arachna, nebula,
like a collapsed supernova or something like that. I'm like, I don't think you really want to be close to that, but
right.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I don't think they were getting too close, but Bones was certainly crabby about it.
Well, he's crab about everything.
Yeah, I think it was just like, wow, wait, you can't even learn anything from some sort of signal that you find. I'm like, yes, you can. What is wrong with you?
I'm not an explorer. I'm a Jim. I'm a country doctor.
Did he actually ever say that in the animated series? Did we ever get a
simple country doctor?
Yeah.
I don't know if we ever got that in TAS.
I don't think we did. That's interesting.
But I don't know, maybe did we get any I'm a doctor, not a blanks?
That's what I mean. Yeah, that's like, I don't think we, maybe we did. I'll have to look that up. Huh.
A trope by then.
Yes. But, so.
But a good story, and I think, the visuals were okay. I think it was a little, because they did a fairly good job of keeping it consistent when they were shrinking, like that, okay, when everyone's this such and such size, that they kind of reflected that, but then it started to get to like, okay, wait, you like a minute ago you were this big and now you're like sitting on your console.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, you could tell they were trying, but it wasn't uniform as it probably would have been.
Yeah, and at the very end when they have they're very small on the planet and they have the crystals that are sort of half their size, and then they come back and they're on the transporter and it's sort of like up to their thigh or something. I'm like, yeah, the crystals grew there.
Yeah, I think the crystals were like maybe the size of a semi-large rock, like at their feet.
Yeah.
But I was more surprised by the size of the city. I'm like, even at a quarter inch, at a 16th of an inch high, like that's not a very big city.
No.
If it takes the size of a dinner plate or something like that.
I
would expect it to be like the size of the transporter pad.
It's a comfortable city home, or country home, but not so much a city.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But a fun overall plot, and it was fun.
Remind me of Candor in some ways from Superman, the bottled city.
Yeah, the bottled city, and I like how the makeshift toothpick, trebuchets or whatever they were building.
Oh yeah,
scaffolding to man their controls, and I'm like, I guess this would have been easier if this would have been TNG because they would have just told the computer to do things.
Yes.
Like we need more voice interface at this point.
Yep. There is still some voice interface, but I think you have to push a button to do it. But what did they say? If they became 1/16 of an inch, that's when they can operate their controls until they're 1 centimeter high, and then after that they can't.
But they will stop shrinking at 1/16 of an inch.
Yes,
because their molecules will be so tightly packed that they can't. Which I'm like, okay. It still seems kind of big.
Okay, related to that. Okay, so we have later Nurse Chapel clumsily falling into a fish tank. I don't even know how she did it, but she sort of threw herself in, basically. And they mentioned that they have the same mass that they have normally. How does she tread water? She should just sunk to the bottom
they have the
like
same weight. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought, she could run at the glass and probably knock the thing off because of her mass, but obviously that's something.
Or would she be just as strong? She's just smaller.
She's smaller, but your pounds per square inch would be increased because you're coming at it with 150
so you have
pounds.
A super dense 100-something pound thing that's a centimeter big.
Yeah, so
it's gonna plummet to the bottom of the fish tank.
Yeah, and I would imagine if you hit the glass, it would probably break it too somehow because it's just I don't know, but
it's focused.
Obviously, the cartoon is not going to cover that. They didn't have to say that the weight was the same. They didn't have to bring that up, I suppose. But I remember this as a kid because they talked about the clothes being made out of xenylon, which is like an algae-based.
Yeah, so that's why they didn't shrink without their clothes.
Yes,
because
didn't become the naked now Terratin Incident.
Part 3.
Yes, but I always thought that was really cool, and I don't know why that sort of stuck with me even after I totally forgot about the animated series. I was just like, oh, of course, your clothes will shrink because they're organic based or something like that. Doesn't make any sense, but okay. I did.
And your boots and
yes.
But the communicators didn't, so that made sense.
I guess the boots are made out of cowhide or something, actual leather or something. I did like they sort of look like Edith Ann when they're sitting in their chairs in the very beginning. The Lily Tomlin character from the 70s. When I don't know. It was similar to an episode that will happen later where they turn into children, but they obviously don't shrink. They just become kids.
Just de-age. Yeah, yes. I remember that one. Spock's like a teen.
Yeah.
And they're all like babies because he's so much older than them.
That is funny. We let's see. There was that scene where they actually get to the place where Nurse Chapel falls in when Bones calls Kirk on the bridge and says, I've got something to tell you. And it was just one of those, you're like, oh, I hope that this is actually worth it because the walk is going to be really far.
Was it? And then just shortly after, the light sensor couldn't trip for the door, so they couldn't even get out. Yeah, it's like this is where you kind of tell them what it is and don't make them come all the way down to. This is a tell me, not show me moment.
Yes, exactly. This is also, how sensitive are their doors if a needle that's waved in front of it can actually open up the door? That would
I don't know.
Super. Yeah, I think obviously we're putting real life logic into something that was more kid like, but I did think it was interesting when they first get to the planet. They were talking about volcanoes, and the volcanoes were spewing out into space.
Yeah, they were more like coronal mass ejections from a sun than a volcano.
So I guess the planet was just sort of tearing itself apart.
Yeah, that didn't seem like a good place to be.
No. They did move them. I wonder if they would start growing again when they put them on a new planet, or if that would
they had started to say that it was genetic, like it was part of their ancestry, so just to assume that they would not grow.
Yeah. But their city might.
Unless it was built there.
It would. I guess that wouldn't. Yeah.
I think it was also interesting talking about dilithium and showing the molecules and how it was spiraling. I'm like, that's interesting. I like that shot of it was connectors at the top and the bottom of the crystals, and then they themselves looked really jacked up in between. And you're like, that's not good. Man, I'm no engineer, but I'm pretty sure that's not how it's supposed to be.
What did Scotty said? They're unfurling like an orange, like unpeeling an orange.
Yeah, like a rind of an orange.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It was really interesting. I didn't know crystals could do that, but apparently this can. Yeah, it was when the ship was, after the dilithium basically unspooled and they couldn't go anywhere, they had a lot of static shots, and not just normal static shots where the ship is kind of drifting or the pylon on the warp nacelle is spinning.
The bizarre collectors still turning. Yeah.
It's just on screen.
It's just there.
Just there. Take a look. Okay. Because
that's an interesting weapon, because that's what it was. It was their defense weapon was to shrink the combatants, but not their ship.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess that would be a good thing. I don't know.
I don't know.
Their logic was kind of odd. Also, when they actually meet them, they say, "We forbid you to destroy us." I'm like, okay.
Yeah, says the ant to the giant.
Yes,
it's
exactly.
Like, okay.
I'm thinking that maybe the spyroid radiation waves may have had a little bit more to do with their outlook than just shrinking them.
That's true. But I mean, if they were using it, then that would come from, it sounds like maybe that was coming from the planet itself. So they were like just using the natural properties of the planet to be their defense.
Mm-hmm. That's true. And it was kind of interesting. Like, well, we had to get your attention somehow.
Right.
So I'm surprised they didn't bring that up. Something just like, well, that was, I don't know. I guess they didn't have a choice, but it feels like they could have done a little bit more with, if this wasn't an animated episode, sort of the backstory and a little bit more about what it must have been like to realize that they were shrinking and, and what part of their culture remained, or I don't know. If they could have split the episode between the planet and the ship a little bit more, like have some of the people, because suddenly they were just there. Oh, they just beamed us down. You never saw that. They were just gone from the bridge.
It happened off screen.
Yeah, and that I think we've never seen. It's just, but it would have been interesting to have Spock down there trying to talk to them or something like that, just to get a little bit more of their viewpoint.
Yeah. I don't know. Their speech was still annoying, so I'm we didn't get more of that. But
well, okay, let's pretend that they changed the speech. One of the things that was interesting is they mentioned, they had knowledge of transporter technology because they came from Earth. They didn't have transporters then when they left.
A couple hundred years ago.
Yeah, so I'm not quite sure. That seemed like a continuity boo-boo. And also at the very end, before they leave the planet or when they're bringing up the crystals, did you notice that there was a person wearing glasses, a Starfleet commander, or no, it's a lieutenant, I'm not sure, with a yellow shirt, is wearing glasses. And the two other people next to him were drawn very specifically, like they didn't look like just generic TAS crew people.
Do you think maybe like production people,
writers, something like that? I actually asked Dorothy Fontana. I sent her a screenshot and said, "Hey, do you know who these people might be?" And she did not remember. So,
we'll never know.
So maybe if somebody's out there, and if you knew the writer of the show, or if you were working at Filmation, maybe you know the answer to this mystery.
But I also like the part where Sulu breaks his leg because he
just lost it.
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, let's do this. I gotta shoot at him, and I'm gonna turn this knob, and then it's gonna turn back and whack me. I'm gonna fall off the console." It's like, be really careful. Well,
that was the thing. Is he's we have to shoot them. We have to. And Kirk is like, the energy wave is coming from 1/6 of the planet. What are you shooting at?
Right.
And he's like, we have to do something.
Although I just realized what they should have done as they started shrinking was just turn down the gravity. If you turn down the gravity to a third of its strength or whatever, then you could jump around.
Yeah.
And actually, that would actually solve a lot of your problems.
We might have to do an episode rewrite of this, because that could be interesting.
Well, that's pretty much the only thing I would change. Okay. But yes.
No, you changed the voice too.
That too.
They'd have less annoying voices.
But yeah, because then 1, you won't fall as fast, and 2, you can literally jump from the floor to the top of your console, but you could still exert a force to push something, to push a button.
True.
I mean, once you're a 16th big, you're still in trouble, but you're not gonna get crushed by something.
Right. Well, and this does have some story similarities to the Deep Space Nine episode, One Little Ship. Is that what?
Yeah,
yes.
One Little Ship,
where it was Jadzia, Bashir, and O'Brien, I think, that were shrunk down. Oh, yeah, to the.
And they were in a runabout.
They were in a runabout, yeah, and they were shrunk down to, I don't know, it wasn't quite this size.
No, I think it was. It looked like it was maybe 2 inches long, something like that. It was
a
fairly
slightly
small.
larger Eagle Moss ship.
Yeah, basically.
That would have been fun. That's what they can do. They come out with another Eagle Moss ship. It's just slightly smaller than the regular runabout.
It's just flying around, and but yeah, no, that was probably actually the right scale. But that was a fun episode as well.
Yes. And I think they could have taken, well, obviously animated series cannot take any kind of ideas from Deep Space Nine, but if they could have time traveled and took some notes, there were some interesting things that I think they could have, incorporated into this episode. There just seemed to be, it was very much a kid's cartoon.
Oh,
which the animated series isn't always.
Because you couldn't do this unless you're all Mary Poppinsing it. You know, to do this live action would be a huge expense.
Yep.
Because pretty much every shot would be a practical effect.
That's true. Oh, and volcanoes. This is another one of Gene Roddenberry's thing about the animated series. It was like, we can always do volcanoes, and that's why you see so many volcanoes in this. I guess he really wanted to do volcanoes, so...
In the land of the giants, 7 space travelers must learn to exist on an extraordinary planet. Trapped in a nightmare world.
The gun is rusty. It might not work anyway. We've only got one shot. If we pull it too far, it'll lock it. Hold it! I'm giving you 10 seconds to let everyone go. Something go wrong? What happened?
We witnessed a murder. Surrounded by an outsized civilization, there is no escape. Only a constant battle to survive.
Everything I've seen so far says that we're back home.
You might at least have the good grace to... Help!
Help, anyone? Ambulance! Help!
Join the crew and passengers of a spaceship lost on the land of the giants. In color on ABC.
The little people discover a secret city Sunday night at 7, 6 Central Time.
This episode actually has some fun Trek technology stuff in it, or things in the Trek universe. First, one thing I was going to mention is that tie-in to Star Trek Enterprise. First contact with the Vulcans was in 2063. And then during the years immediately following Zefram Cochrane's first warp flight, several groups of colonists struck out on their own to unknown reaches of interstellar space, and a series of human settlements named Terra basically... were part of this colonization program. So we have the SS Conestoga that was launched from Earth in 2069 to colonize Terra Nova. And that was the planet Terra Nova. So that's our little tie-in to Enterprise. They had an intersat code that was what they used, and at that point it was discontinued. And I'm guessing that's because you suddenly had ships moving at radically different speeds.
Right.
I mean, I'm just, putting it in my head.
By the time you sent it and it got to somewhere, like months had passed.
Yeah. According to the spaceflight chronology, for Terra 10, the original colonists left to find a new home far away from the jurisdictions of Earth and other assertive neighbors in hopes of creating a colony for themselves and their descendants that would have no interference from the outside. So a consortium of like-minded isolationists purchased 10 interplanetary industrial spacework ships powered by advanced nuclear fusion, enabling them to cruise at half the speed of light. So you've got the Terra Nova ship moving, I think it was like a Warp 1 vessel or something like that.
Just twice the fast.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. So they have moved at different time, even though they went, at different... One would arrive faster even though it left later. Earlier, sorry. The ships were refitted into multi-generational space arcs designed to be completely self-sustaining for decades, and the 10th space arc was Terra 10 from Terratin incident, and it left the solar system in 2070. And obviously this isn't all canon because it's part of these books.
5 years to build these after discovering warp. Like, the Earth didn't seem to be in any shape to launch anything at the time.
But I did like the idea that, it sort of created this, what is it, a renaissance of exploration and science, and like, oh wow, we can get out there. And I obviously
it's been a long road, Aaron, getting from there to here, but their time was finally near.
Goodbye. No. Yeah.
But Aaron, we haven't yet talked about the Gossamer Mice, which Dr. Phlox, I'm sure, had a pair of these. We just never saw them.
That would have been awesome. That would be,
that would have been a great tie-in.
That would have been a lot of fun. Yeah, so we have Gossamer Mice, which are these mice that are basically transparent.
Right. Like cloaking mice.
But cloaking mice, yeah, because you're not really seeing their insides. You're not seeing bones or anything like that. And then there's halo fish, which basically are glowing fish. And apparently, according to Nurse Chapel, the species loses all color at any kind of environmental change.
Which is actually kind of, it's that canary in the coal mine kind of thing, but it's actually kind of clever to have stuff like that that's not scientific, or that's not technology based, because so many things can affect the ship where they're like, hey, all of our readings are fine, but the ship, Kirk, you better get down here, because of course I can't tell him. And then he gets down there and he's like, oh no, the halo fish has changed color.
He's like, just look at this halo fish. He's like, yes, what am I looking at? It's like, it's gray. Okay, good for you.
And when they said the Gossamer Mice have escaped, how do you know?
They were Gossamer, not like invisible.
Okay.
It's like very, very thin.
They're two-dimensional.
Yes,
they
they're
turn sideways.
Two-dimensional. Yes, exactly. Look, the Gossamer or the halo fish certainly look like it could. So that was interesting, and it would be, I'd imagine, that Dr. Phlox, if we saw these creatures, probably did have like a halo fish or something. Yeah. The halo fish, actually, I could see being a creature.
Right.
The Gossamer Mice, not so much. We also have what we mentioned earlier, the uniforms made of an algae-based xenylon. So that's kind of interesting. I like that idea that that kind of makes sense. If we're doing something for space, algae is something really easy to grow.
Especially since replicators aren't quite as advanced at this period, where we all know nowadays you just push a button and you get a replicated uniform.
Yep. Yeah, I like that idea. And that was, like I said, that was one of those things that when I grew up, it had just stuck with me from the animated series. I'm like, that's cool.
But the way that Spock reveals that to us, we get some great lines.
Oh yeah, what is this composition of the what? No,
he says. He's looking at her bracelet, and he's like, "What is the composition of this decoration?" And she's like, "Oh, it was an arm bracelet, more like a necklace now. Yet the uniform on which you wear it fits as well as ever." It's like, whoa there, Spock.
Nurse Chapel said, "Oh, you really think so? Let me throw myself at you, like the last episode."
And then she'll land in a fish tank.
Yeah, you would think that. Yeah, exactly. You would think that she would have learned her lesson from the last episode, but maybe not. We also have Starbase 23, which is what they were talking about when they first approached the planet, and they're like signaling their scientific information back to them. And Starbase 23 actually is in more than just the animated series. It is also in Next Generation, I'll let you take this because you're the TNG guy.
Well, Aaron, we have to get back to the Devron system. We have to get there to learn about Starbase 23.
What's wrong with you, old Picard?
But yes, the Devron system is closest to Starbase 23, which of course we saw in Next Generation, All Good Things, their finale, and the alternate 2370, which was created by eruptions. We've got more volcanoes.
Time volcanoes. Oh my gosh, I'm surprised I didn't do
Volcano through time. But yes, he ordered Ketzler-Troy to contact Starbase 23 to see if the effects of the temporal anomaly from the Devron system had spread. And of course, in the future, they're like, what anomaly?
Exactly.
But in the present, when he's talking to Troy, they're like, yes. And I think they said yes, but yeah. and then farther in the past. I really like that. That whole like the anomaly grows larger in the past was a very cool twist.
Yeah, I that could actually have been used in the animated series, I suppose, if people were, like...
Well, no, we just have the ship go backwards, right to left on the screen. That's just totally the same thing.
Exactly. Actually, I was thinking of the final episode of the animated series as well. Oh, no, that is the same one, isn't it? Yeah, they go into, like, the negative universe.
The counterclock incident?
Yeah, the counterclock incident. So, kind of. That's interesting. Why is it that season finales have time travel?
Because it's Star Trek. We love time travel. Okay. We can't do it in the first episode because then people get like confused. But
that's true.
Well, we also get some cool use of metaphysics shields. We love the word meta.
Oh yes.
In Star Trek, but Dr. Crusher does have her metaphysics shields.
Oh, that was the really cool kind of whodunit episode with Beverly and a tennis-playing Guinan who didn't really play tennis.
Exactly. Yeah, which was also interesting, the whole... that way of telling a story where you start like 3/4 through and then someone's telling the story from the first half.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting choice, but yeah, anyway,
this has been TNG on TAS.
But she contacts... or she said that the shuttle was taken to Starbase 23.
And then going from there to Earth or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So...
for her board of inquiry.
She had suspicions.
Ha ha.
Which was the name of that episode. But she was suspicious of the Gossamer Mice.
Gossamer Mice could have turned up on Deep Space Nine.
Gossamer Mice is the name of my Trek cover band.
I think that might be the name of this episode.
Gossamer Mice.
Oh, that's funny.
But what about the Gossamer Mice? There's the title. But yes, a lot of
xenylon mice.
A lot of connections with.
That
episode fits as well as it ever did.
It's kind of interesting how many episodes or how many things that the animated series actually does end up touching for a show. For a short period of time that was like, oh, it's not canon. Like, well, it certainly affected a lot. It really affected the Enterprise, or the Enterprise. It did that too.
It affected Enterprise.
Yeah, I was really kind of surprised at that when I was watching. I was like, oh, there's a Salot, and then they mentioned the Coswan and all the things from yesterday's Enterprise, but there was other things too, so that was pretty cool. So as far as bloopers and stuff go, because it's the animated series and we can't go without having some sort of bizarre thing happen that's
there
not
were a
planned.
Couple. It wasn't too bad.
No, it wasn't too bad actually. We did have the ghost of Carter Winston haunting Uhura. It was like a reuse of the character from Survivors. Or Survivor, not Survivors, that's a TNG episode.
Yes, with Geordi, where he forges his own tools.
I thought that was with Kevin.
Oh, no, you're right. That's the great and powerful Kevin.
Yes. Good tea, nice house.
Watch out for the lawn.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's traps there.
So she was, he's basically sort of hovering in the background behind her, and they just sort of recolored, I think, his mustache and his hair.
Yeah, it's not creepy at all.
No,
he's just kind of like staring right into the camera.
It is weird. There was, obviously that thing at the end that we mentioned where they have the guy with the eyeglasses, which I don't know, maybe it's just an affectation. Maybe it's part of like.
What do you have against people with eyeglasses, Aaron?
I'm wearing them myself right now. But I don't think Starfleet officers tend to, unless they're making some sort of point about Tales of Two Cities and aging, and yeah, exactly, and whether a gift will be or won't be in the future, and
it'll be again. That's the beauty of it.
That does not make sense. It will be again, yes, to you from the past. It will never be a gift of your future again.
Well, I think he just means that by putting it in the past, technically, since it was already antique, there's a chance that it could become the exact same pair that he gets later.
Right, but it's now gone. Whatever it is for him, he will never get those back because they're either going to become those gifts.
But past him will get them.
But yes, but past him is not him now.
Right.
He's like, I'm just saying. To me, it felt like, well, it'll be a gift again. Well, kinda, yeah. Technically,
a gift again is in his future from that moment in 1986.
No, correct.
Yeah.
So anyway, there was also an error after Eric's gets shrunk, he mentions that his eyes no longer reach his station opticals, but the navigation station doesn't have any of those like view screen.
No viewers.
No. Although I have noticed
Eric just complains a lot. Really, that's just all he does.
Well, he's not as bad as Bones, but yeah. But his voice is more annoying, probably. It's James Doohan in his like kind of high raspy thing. I don't know if I'd know it was James Doohan if I hadn't known.
I don't think I would either.
He does a good job of doing that. There's also, speaking of James Doohan, we had Scotty on the bridge while he was talking to Kirk, who was also on the bridge, through a intercom. We were supposed to think that he's in engineering, but it is the same shot.
But he's obviously sitting at the station in the bridge.
I'm just waiting for somebody to the turbo lift door to open or something. But yeah, so that was very similar.
But the next shot is Kirk looking over. Oh, you're right there, Scotty. Let me just.
Very similar to that one episode that we saw where he's talking to Bones, and it's like, you need to come up here right away. Oh, you're already here. Because he was standing right next to him when he was using the intercom. We also had a visual error where the bridge elevator or the bridge turbolift doors were gray instead of red.
Gosh, throw this whole episode away. It's trash. Can't even color the turbolift doors correctly.
So no, but all in all, not bad. I just we didn't have any transparent legs or like the problem that the episode that Adam and I reviewed for Once Upon a Planet, where Sulu is in danger on the planet and he's also at his station.
Wow,
which was great.
Okay, that's pretty bad.
See, he's such a great officer. He can be there and in danger at the same time.
Kind of makes the Galileo 7 kind of, but. Well, there was also, speaking of continuity errors, I remember seeing an article that I don't think we had touched on where someone who cosplayed as a coloring error of Nurse Chapel, and she's got like one red sleeve.
We didn't catch that.
That is some meta right there.
Oh, wait. That was the episode that I believe that Sue was on. Sue or Andy, one of the two. Yeah, we missed that as well. I don't know how, but
it was probably really, really fast.
It was very fast. I did go back and find it because I had to look at. But the cosplay also had an error because Nurse Chapel doesn't have a black collar.
Oh,
so shame on that person. No,
no, trash.
It was amazing. It was great.
But she went extra authentic and had the label tag said made of algae-based xenylon.
I still want to do, an animated series costume one of these days. I'm not sure if it will ever be for Star Trek Las Vegas because I don't ever want to go back to Las Vegas again.
Yeah, Vegas and I don't really want. Maybe Star Trek New York. That actually looks a lot more enjoyable.
Yes, and hopefully a lot less smoky and gross.
Oh, goodness, yes. And you're in New York, so there's actually other things to do besides just in and out.
Yeah, actually, we haven't actually spoken on air since we got back from Star Trek Las Vegas.
We'd never speak of Las Vegas again, Aaron.
But we did see some animated series costumes. We did. We saw, let's see, Emrys.
Yeah, there's a good Emrys there. Let's see.
I think there was a giant Tribble Eater. Wasn't there a Glomer?
A Glommer? I think, yeah, there were a lot of Tribble people, but I think there was one that was a Glommer. There was also a Tribble person who had like a Glommer on their shoulder, I think. Like the one the size of the little puppet you have.
Oh, yeah, and I wore mine on when we did the mission log, a Roddenberry stage thing. That was fun.
Right, the podcasters panel.
Yes, thank you. And actually, I should probably link back to that. We haven't talked about that.
Yeah, no, that was fun. No, it was a lot of fun, and... Definitely the highlight
people.
Was obviously the people. Yeah, the people we got to see. Norm's awesome. What was that? The governor so-and-so with his, like, the blue robe.
Yeah, what was that? That was of Gods and Men? Or yes.
Something like that.
No, it's the episode that Axanar is based off of. Okay, we can cut that out.
There's... But meeting the people, that was the best part. So we had a lot of fun in Vegas. And we'll never, ever go there.
I had my motion picture Admiral's uniform. That was fun. And incredibly comfortable, which really surprised me. I was was like, oh, okay, I don't even feel like I'm wearing different clothes. And then when you walk back to your room and you go past people who are not wearing uniforms, who are just there to gamble, you feel a little weird. It's like, oh, I'm in a Starfleet uniform. Okay.
Never forget who you are.
But it's kind of interesting. We've interviewed a lot of people, through Trek FM for this show and for other shows, and it's really kind of cool just to be able to kind of go by people and say, oh, I know that person, or I've talked with them, and just be able to kind of wave, and it's more of a I won't say a colleague thing, but it's just
like the internet's getting together.
Yeah, and I was really surprised how many people had seen Saturday Morning Trek. In fact, somebody said they went to Dragon Con and there was an animated series panel, and they talked to them and they said, oh, the reason we're doing this panel is because we got inspired by Saturday Morning Trek.
Oh, that's cool.
So I'm like, that's really awesome. So
well, it's a niche thing, but it's a niche thing that there wasn't anyone doing.
Yes.
So it was perfect to do because it's like, why not talk about the 70s and this period of Trek, especially now that Discovery is fairly close to that time.
Yeah, and just the design even of the Discovery that we talked about, from the Planet of the Titans aborted movie, and we have a supplementary issue of episode of that for a really brief, just like 7 minutes or something about that. We will go into more depth at one point. In fact, I believe we're going to be able to get the person who wrote the script for it. And I don't know if anybody's ever seen the script for Planet of the Titans. I'm sure, well, I mean, somebody has, but it's not like...
Is that like Clash of the Titans meets Planets of the Apes? Like they combined?
That's a good idea. No, it's more like Black Hole meets some sort of time travel show. It's interesting because they basically asked a bunch of sci-fi authors at the time to come up with story ideas, and there was a lot of time travel ideas. And some of them were pretty cool, and some of them were just like, yeah, that's crazy. It'll be interesting to actually dive into some of those. I'm hoping that to talk to a couple of the people who pitched those ideas and see if they would be willing to come on and talk. So we're gonna.
Oh yeah, no, that'd be great.
Captain's log, stardate 5122-6, on a mission to Gamma 6. Spock, Bones, Scotty, and I beamed down, not knowing what to expect. We approached the idol. Its jaws were moving. Suddenly, 5 lilliputians appeared, each attached to the other. The aliens placed themselves in front of the idol. Strange animals tried to grab us. Bones was trapped in a man-eating plant. Suddenly, the floor gave way. I was in the cave. The lilliputians were friendly. Mission to Gamma 6 was a success.
But exploding volcanoes aren't the only thing we've been talking about on Trek FM this week. Here's a look at some of the things you may have missed elsewhere on the network.
Previously on Trek.fm, Standard Orbit.
So going to Destination Star Trek and being able to see the crew, some of the major, still living members of the 60s original series crew, well, it's a bit of a bucket list moment for me.
Saturday Morning Trek.
And all these things just brought in more and more people who thought they were alone, and they found each other, and they made their clubs, and then they made conventions, and that's what the 70s were about, was getting Star Trek back and finding each other.
Melodic Treks.
Imagine that scene without that music. That music is so poignant and so beautiful. And they had played it earlier in the episode, and it wasn't sad when they played it earlier. It was romantic. It was happy. It was freeing.
And that's what else is happening on Trek.fm.
So check out the shows and get in on the daily Trek Talk. You'll find them at iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spreaker, and the Windows Podcast Directory for Xbox and Zune. You can visit our website at Trek.fm and view our podcast directory and stream all of our shows right from the website. We'd also like to invite you to leave us a rating and review on iTunes. Not only does it help us know how we're doing, it also helps other people find the show. Before we go, I'd like to thank our patrons, Mike Bovia, Eric Extreme, and Joo Kim. Thank you so much for your support. And if you want to become an associate producer of a Trek FM show, all you need to do is become a patron of the network at the $25 or more level. Go to patreon.com/TrekFM and find out how you can become part of the team. That's patreon.com/TrekFM. So, Darren, when you're not, chasing Gossamer Mice around the office, where can we find you?
Well, they can find me on Twitter under username Dr. Sci-Fi, DRSCIFI, talking about science fiction, or my website, drsci-fi.com, where I blog about my time spent as a stormtrooper, part of the JJ Exchange program.
The JJ Exchange program. That's great. And you can find me on Alexa. Sorry, my cat is... Go away. No, I will get you dinner shortly. Meow. Yes.
Or sorry, MRS.
It was funny. Mitchell said they should have had a giant cat chasing them. I was like, they've had 2 giant cats on the animated series already. It's like, we don't need more animated cats.
Don't need volcanoes and animated cats.
Like,
pretty much all the show.
Why would there be a cat in the? It's like, well, they could have been in the cage, like with the Gossamer Mice.
Alien.
Yeah. You can find me on Twitter. My username is GeekFilter, and you can find me around the Babel Conference, our Facebook users group. Well, I guess we better get going out of the wood panel. Did you shrink again?
No, I already left the den. I'm just outside.
Oh, okay, great. I thought I was going to step on you.
Hey, we had rain a couple days ago, so I'm enjoying the weather that's not 1,000,000,000 degrees out.
I missed you, Darren. And remember, there is an animated series.
And Gossamer Mice.
Dr. McCoy, the animals, they're getting too small for the cage mesh. All the Gossamers are out. And look how tiny they've gotten.